Okay, thank you everyone so much for joining today. I'm really excited and grateful for your time this afternoon or morning, depending on your respective time zone. So we are just going to get started here today as people continue to join. So just to introduce myself, my name is Alisa Jimenez. I am the HEDx project manager, and I sit at Campus Compact. And just a few notes for today. We just ask if you can kindly stay on mute during this call. Ask any questions in the chat. I will do my best to address them. And this call will be recorded as well. Okay, and so just to let you all know what you can expect this afternoon while you share your time with us, just a brief introduction and welcome from me, and then we will hand it over to Bobby and Ashley for a brief overview of HEDx as well as an update. And then you'll also be hearing from a HEDx partner and advisors. We will then transition into a question and answer. Again, I'll be monitoring the questions in the chat. And then we will head into just a quick wrap up and a what to expect next from the group. So thank you so much again. And with that, I'm going to hand out, and just to let you know who you're going to be hearing from today. So you'll be hearing from myself, Bobby, the president of Campus Compact, Ashley Finley, the vice president of research and senior advisor to the president of AAC&U, as well as John Bridgeland, the CEO and executive chair of More Perfect, a HEDx partner, Kay Kawashima Ginsburg, an independent consultant and HEDx advisor, and Rashawn Davis, an advisor, speaker, writer, and also a HEDx advisor. And now with that, I'm going to hand over to Bobby and Ashley.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alisa. And just to double down on that, we're so thankful that you're here. I love seeing everybody's names and affiliations roll into the chat. I will say right away, we've got lots of folks who are already deep in it with us in this work in HEDx, because this effort is very much all about collaboration. I am going to be tag teaming this kind of kickoff with my partner in crime on this, Ashley Finley, who has been, we have been along this road together from the very beginning, and really thankful for her. And I want to say really thankful to Alisa Jimenez, who has come on board as a full-time project manager with us. And anybody who knows what it takes to lift up a project like this, it takes someone living and breathing it every day. And we are thankful to have Alisa doing that. So with that, we're going to just really quickly, hopefully provide some context at this point, just about the project, a little bit about how things have been going. I do want to ground us in that we are still at the early stages of this, but it's also a quick ramp up. So while we really feel like we're wrapping our hands around the project, and every day, literally every day, this afternoon, we have a really interesting discovery session. We are seeing the concepts take shape. We're still in a stage where there's so much opportunity to shape it and think about what this can look like. And that's a part of what's coming out of today. So first, just what is HEDx for those that are new? HEDx is the Higher Education Democracy Exchange Platform. And this is a vision, and what it intends to do is to be a multifunctional platform. You're going to hear a bit about that today. What are those functional areas? That's going to mobilize the efforts, evidence, and expertise within the civic and community engagement area of higher education. So who is involved in HEDx? As we said, this is about collaboration at its core. The core project team and the two PIs are Campus Compact and AAC&U, with Ashley and I serving in the leadership roles in those. But we are working alongside an incredible group of organizations. The two primary that have been along the road with us from also the beginning are UVA's Karsh Institute of Democracy, which we're going to talk about how they show up throughout. More Perfect, you're going to get to hear from the founder of More Perfect, John Bridgeland, in just a minute. ImageX, who is new to our team, and they were brought on after a competitive RFP. They're developing HEDx from a platform technology perspective. And then none of this is possible without the IBIS group and the leadership of Chi Kim. And we are so thankful to them, not just for their investment in HEDx, but their investment in a larger portfolio of civic learning work under the leadership of More Perfect and Bridge. And we are so thankful to be in collaboration with them. This project is all about thinking about how we can support the field in organizing itself, how we can really do something that is democratic in nature when we build this work. And so you'll see along the bottom some of the ways we are envisioning currently, and then even more so over the next 6 to 9 months, of how people are going to see themselves in this work. You're going to hear from 2 of our 10 HEDx advisors today. but I've already seen a couple of other ones are actually with us in this town hall. So who knows, they might make a peep showing too. We're going to have a variety of focus group sessions. So we haven't started those. So if you're like, did I miss a sign up? You have not missed it. Being here is a solid first step in that direction. They're going to be rolling out particularly over this fall. So very direct opportunities for you to weave in on like nitty gritty parts of the platform that would be helpful to you to broader sort of functionality areas. There's a really important event that's coming up in mid-October called Democracy 360. This is hosted by the University of Virginia Karsh Institute of Democracy. This is an incredible convening that you can access as a member of the public. They're going to be putting on a series of public events. I encourage you to check it out. I even asked Elisa if she could throw the link to D360 in chat. We are going to be doing, I think Kay just called it a retreat, which is probably a better name because we're going to be spending about 3.5 days with our team from HEDx, about 40 of us, which makes up of our advisors, some key stakeholders, all of the partners. We're going to be in Charlottesville in mid-October with ImageX, digging deep, looking at actually coming out of that so with some real clear direction around where the development is going. We're then going to need people to test it. So we'll be coming back to people in the spring to test the functionality, to help us know what's working, what's not, and then working with a variety of organizations to help us think about how to make sure, and Bridge has been such a voice in my ear on this, and Chi too, to make sure we don't build something amazing that just sits on the interweb that no one accesses. So we're really going to need to work across the field to think about how this intersects with your organization, how we get people and viewers and users of HEDx. The next thing I just want to mention really quickly, but I don't want to steal Bridget's thunder, is that we are founding HEDx on the 5 democracy goals of More Perfect. So these 5 democracy goals, all of which are here, are driven and informed particularly by the Our Common Purpose report. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, to take a look at that. And they were developed under the leadership of More Perfect, but by a leading democracy practitioners. We feel that these really give us a North Star. When we think about the work of the intersection of democracy and higher education, these 5 democracy goals, for me and Ashley, earlier in our conversation, we thought provided such a great frame and way for us to think about how we organize our work. So they are a critical component of how we are advancing HEDx, thinking about what it can do. The other piece that is such a critical kind of backbone that's already done, that we're thankful to the Lumina Foundation who made it possible, that was already a partnership between Campus Compact and AAC&U, and that is the democratic inventory work. I can see through the chat we have some folks who are here today who are part of that design team. The democratic inventory guide, which will be live in people's inboxes in the next 10 days, I can promise you. So if you're like, again, where's the link for this? We'd gone through some work, particularly around the case studies and profiles that took a little bit of extra time, but the end result is worth it. The democracy inventory was developed under the leadership of Scott Warren, Tom Schnaubelt, and Karina from Stanford and Johns Hopkins. Those 3 individuals worked with an incredible design team of practitioners across the country, some who I know are with us today, to build out this guide, which again is going to be a foundational piece of how we build HEDx. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley for a little bit more of background pieces.
Slow cursor. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be with you. Every time Bobby and I get to talk about this, you can hear the excitement in our voice. And I hope to reinforce what Bobby started with. And I hope that you can hear all along the way how intentional we have tried to be really over the year or so preceding this conversation, and how inclusive we have tried to be in this process, in really building from community voices, from the good work that you all are doing on campus, and really translating that into the vision that is coming up over the next year. And part of what we did with the initial Lumina planning grant for this was, in addition to the Democracy Inventory Guide, which was an incredible part of work and deliverable from that part of the project, we also hosted a series of 6 what we called community conversations, basically figuring out that the vision was to create a platform, and our sidebar tagline for this project between Bobby and I and now you is like, how do we make platforms sexy again? Well, that's part of it, is giving and bringing in as many voices as we could. And these were the kinds of things that we heard. Throughout those community conversations, you can see the list of the stakeholders we engaged from various sectors in this great and highly diverse landscape of ours. But we heard there was a need. We did hear, if you build this, and if you build it correctly, if you build it with this kind of functionality in mind, we will come. We will find this valuable. That we needed to root it in what works for student success, what works for student needs, to attend to that as we go through. And I think a core piece of what we also heard from those is, how do we build this with an eye toward filling in the gaps of the resources that campuses need? Like, yes, we are working very hard to do this work. We often are doing this work in isolation. So how can you connect the resources that can bring us together and fill those kinds of capacity needs that we have, while also attending to the diversity of our needs across all the context of the various parts of this landscape that we are in. So so building off of those community conversations, here's the timeline that we're going to next. As Bobby mentioned, we are moving quickly. We're moving almost as quickly as Bobby and I are talking to get through everything we need to, so we can get to other voices in this. But it is a speedy timeline. But we promise to communicate with you all along the way for those opportunities of where you can be engaged. You can see where we are now, moving into step number 2 in through July and September, which is really this kind of design phase of taking the vision forward. Our new favorite phrase between AAC&U and Compact on this is minimum viable product. So we are thinking a lot about, how do we build something innovative out of the box, knowing it can get better also as we continue to build it and include you. So you can see Bobby mentioned the convening in October for our HEDx. This was really an intensive design session, or intensive design retreat. Then we will be moving into more of the technical development, more of that, how do we translate that minimum viable product in each of the strands of functionality that you're about to see. We will begin with some beta testing, launching at the AAC&U annual meeting in January. Hope those of you around can join us for that. Be doing that all the way through March. These will be opportunities for you to get engaged as well. And then we'll leveraging the resources of our 2 associations, and we'll come back to Compact 26 and do some innovation sprints to continue with that design process, tweaking parts of this vision, and then moving towards a April last phase, April to July, with a July release. How am I doing on time? Okay. So when you think about, like, what's this platform going to do? We are thinking about at least, we are focusing on 4 areas of major functionality, and we'll walk you through those briefly. But I hope as you look at these, we are trying to think about, again, where can we help build capacity across campuses? Where can we also help that connective spirit to emerge, where campuses are finding the things they need for them, but also finding ways that they connect with others. So I'll just say these quickly, and then we're going to go into more in depth. We're talking about a civic indicators dashboard. Say more about that in a moment. A credentials clearinghouse, a civic experts network, and then scaling civic innovations at scale, which is going to be a major resource hub. Okay, so in talking about each of these pieces, I'm going to talk about the first 2. Bobby will come in and talk about the second 2. We're also going to show you a little bit about the advisors who are leading each of these sections. So Elisa, you can go ahead and go through. Okay, so the Civic Indicators dashboard is really about storytelling. I mean, it's all about storytelling, but this is the way that we wanted to bring together various parts and aspects of the data that live outside in so many different places, and really bring it together and say, how do we actually tell a story about civic skills and abilities across our institutions, and the way institutions are contributing to the greater good? We have Marisol Morales, who's the executive director at Carnegie, the Carnegie classifications, and Kay Kawashima Ginsburg. You'll see her picture a lot during this, and then you'll finally get to hear from her. But these are the 2 amazing people that are leading this part of the strand of functionality. Really excited about how we bring data together. And then the next we'll go to the Civic Credential Clearinghouse. I know both of these advisors are listening in. Melanie Booth, who brings a wealth of experience in the credentialing space from Higher Learning Commission, from WASC accrediting body, and just doing some amazing consulting work now. And Noah Geisel at the University of Colorado Boulder, who also brings just great innovation and imagination. Both of these people bring great imagination to this, but this is really about bundling. How do we actually think about the ways in which we bundle and appreciate recognizing students' civic skills and abilities? So we're talking about certificates, we're talking about badges, we're talking about all kinds of micro credentials in this space. How do we elevate those, and how do we actually bring employers and community partners into this space as well? Bobby, I know I'm already looking at our timestamp. We're doing great on this run of show.
Awesome. Okay, so I apologize that we're moving fast, but I also want to note that this is at a point in time where we want to use this town hall so that you can get a sense of where we are, but also we wanted to reserve a bulk of the time for Q&A, which is why we're trying to move fast. Talking slow has never been something I have conquered, so apologies in advance. So I'm going to talk about the other two areas quickly. So the Civic Experts Network. So we have two of the three, I think I see advisors with us today. So Sanda, the executive director of Pericles, is with us today and is doing such phenomenal work to help us think about this in unique ways. Carme, who's a current student and community leader at Texas Women's University and a past Newman Civic Fellow. Alex Edgar, who is the youth engagement manager with Made by Us, who I think is also on with us today. Alex, also a past Newman Civic Fellow with Campus Compact. And a little shout out, asked one of my Compact colleagues to put it in chat, is going to be co-leading a community of practice with us this fall around the 250th. So what are we talking about related to the Civic Experts Network? You can see a little bit on the left of some of the things we're digging in on, but so far, what have we wrestled with? And that's what I wanted to share. You know, we've been talking about how do we make this network ensure that its users, especially students, feel like they can be seen and that they are not limited by the word expert by itself, recognizing that sometimes that can be really a stopping point of entry. We've talked about how do we think about vetting? What does it look like to vet folks in the Civic Experts Networks? How do we make sure that within this space, it really draws in users from a variety of audiences? And that it also not just is a place for people to understand experts, but to connect around mentorship and coaching. So those are some of the things that we've been thinking about thus far, with much more to come. So the last kind of functionality area that we're centering for HEDx is the Scaling Civic Innovations and Resource Hub. You're going to get to hear from Rashawn Davis in just a little bit. We also have Gabe Lerner with us, who's the publisher and founder of Democracy Notes. Shout out to Democracy Notes. If you're not following it, you should subscribe. And then Deanna Villanueva Salcedo, who's the Associate Vice Chancellor for the Center of Excellence in Inclusive Democracy within Maricopa. And Deanna has been a past longtime Campus Compact advisor, particularly as we think about community colleges. So what are some of the big questions we're thinking about? One of these is, and I will say many of you, I see lots of other organizations here, it's this question of how do you build a resource hub that is not just a collection of thousands and thousands of artifacts, but rather really focuses on the scaling of civic innovation. We do not want this. We know there are so many great partners, Compact being one of them, that has really rich resource hubs. We're focused here on problem solving, about addressing the most wicked issues when we think about those democracy goals. How can this hub not just be a place where you can see what's working, but you can also problem solve together? Finding the balance between those two things has been something we've talked about. We want to understand how it spurs innovation and create spaces for things like funders to come in to help bring people together, organizations and campuses, to address things in a collective way. So I hope that gives you a little flavor of what the kind of ideation and discovery sessions, frankly, have been amongst the advisors just this past month and a half since we've really gotten into the deeper work, and how those things are the baselines for how we're going to move forward. So next up, I think is going to be the highlight of today. You're going to hear from three incredible people who are core to our work. And the first that I have the pleasure of passing it over to is John Bridgeland, who is the CEO and executive chair of More Perfect, but that is just one of his affiliations, of which there are several. He is also the executive chairman of the Office of American Possibilities and has an incredible resume that is all focused on and helping our country advance public purposes. So I'll turn it over to you, Bridge.
Thank you, Bobby. Can you hear me? Bobby, can you hear
Oh,
me?
yes, you're perfect. Sorry. Thumbs up, you didn't see.
You and Ashley, your enthusiasms are so contagious. Thank you for that great overview. And I'll just say, we just had our first grandchild. So if you hear cries from the home, she's for HEDx, not against it. So I remember, speaking at a conference of Campus Compact about 20 years ago and seeing how impressive the collective firepower of the nation's colleges and universities were in fostering a culture of service in the United States. And after 9/11, I saw the firepower you brought, the largest levels of growth in Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, Vista, Conservation Corps, and the Disaster Preparedness and Response Corps, and how much students found pathways to be part of this culture of service. So I'm really encouraged that given the time we live in, the civic mission of higher education can be put on steroids, and HEDx can play a fundamental part in that. As Bobby mentioned, 4 years ago, worried about the trends in our country, I founded this organization called More Perfect. It's an alliance now of remarkably 37 of the nation's presidential centers, from Washington's Mount Vernon through the Obama Foundation, and who've never collaborated before. And it's remarkable to see how much they can bring to the enterprise. The National Archives Foundation, that's representing sort of the collective memory of the nation, and then over 100 partners, including Campus Compact and AAC&U, working together with partners on the front lines. The big idea, as Bobby mentioned, is to advance 5 foundational democracy goals. They have kind of a logic to them: civic learning, so Americans understand democratic norms, values, and institutions; national service and volunteering at real scale. Our ambition is a million every year engaged in national service opportunity; as civic rites of passage as students come of age; building trust and bridging the divides to learn civil dialogue and to remind Americans of how they can work together across divisions to solve problems; trusted elections and effective governance, so Americans have voice in a system that works; and access to trusted news and information, so there's some sense of shared truth. The good news is, because of this alignment of effort, and I think this can accrue to the benefit of higher education, hundreds of millions of dollars have been raised to support these frontline partners. And even in this really difficult environment, we're making extraordinary progress. One example is over $500 million to revitalize local news outlets in 38 states across the United States. On September 17th, we're going to have a big announcement about a significant philanthropic investment in civic education, which frankly has been the stepchild of all the 5 democracy goals. But finally, because of the 250th, it's getting a lot of increasing support. We need to bring that support to bear to higher education. I speak a lot on college campuses. It's such a privilege to interact with this next generation. And I must just say that the civic sparks in these students go off when I tell them that historian Doris Kearns Goodwin came and helped us launch More Perfect. And she reminded us that all transformational change across US history was first catalyzed by individual citizens just like them. Martin Luther King was a 16-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, without any public appointment or office, who cared about a cause, cared about a place, cared about an idea, a population. And it's so motivating when they see they have agency, they have power. And so in all this work that we do to effectuate and change and reform systems and provide more opportunity, I just wanted to put a fine point on, in a democracy, which is a demanding form of government, citizen, not senator, president, is the highest office in the land. And we have to remind this next generation that they have tremendous power to make a difference. As you know, it's interesting. My former college president, Derek Bach, when he wrote this article for the Chronicle of Higher Education, sort of threw down the gauntlet on the civic mission in higher education, called me, and we talked about various ways in which higher ed was already embracing the civic mission, but what more could be done. I'm just so excited to see so many institutions stepping up to actually make students take courses in history and government and civic education, to graduate or provide incentives through civic seals on their diplomas, expand national service opportunities to marry learning with civic engagement. And even I'm on the board of the Karsh Institute, which is a partner in HEDx, and Melody Barnes is doing such an extraordinary job creating pan-university models for civic learning, where this approach and the civic inquiry is embedded throughout the university. I'm also encouraged by ways on college campuses, Manu Meal, to bridge divides and bring students with different ideologies and backgrounds, particularly at this time, together and to debate issues and solve local problems. And that there are more and more pathways, even into public service, as we're seeing a lot of the public service positions under threat. Finally, we're teaching a generation to code. We need to teach a generation to decode news and information, particularly given the misinformation today in the ecosystem. I'll just end with this. We're about to celebrate the 250th of the Declaration. I was at Monticello on July 4th. We were launching Declaration Book Club with Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. And Ken Burns reminded us that in 1776, when kings ruled in France and Britain, a czarina in St. Petersburg, an emperor in China, a sultan in Constantinople, a shogun in Japan, a group of imperfect men in Philadelphia envisioned a system and wrote words in a declaration that turned the world upside down. And out of a bloody struggle, the Revolutionary War, Burns said, America unexpectedly came to be about the noblest aspirations of humankind. And when Jefferson wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it was an invitation to future generations to have a civic inquiry about what other rights and truths should we envision for the modern age. So I wonder, I'll just close with, I wonder how many students have that context, how many have the same passion for the freedom and opportunities in this country that the 74 people from 40 countries and 5 continents I saw sworn in as new Americans have, as they shared their stories of love and understanding of this country and its system. So I'm wildly enthusiastic about HEDx as one of our big bets to support the reinvigoration of higher education. I think the 5 democracy goals, we never try to impose something, but we've reviewed over 50 commission reports, task forces, research, evidence across history. And these 5 pillars of American democracy seem like a decent framework, at least to think about in the context of higher ed. And so we look forward to sparking, lifting up, advancing innovations across higher education so students are empowered to be effective citizens in a wide array of opportunities they have before them, and to learn the value of the democratic proposition that Republican John Gardner, think about this, a cabinet member in the Democrat Lyndon Johnson administration summarized so well: freedom and responsibility, liberty and duty. That's the deal. And if we can equip generations with that proposition, rights and responsibilities, I think we'll have a winner. Back to you, Bobby. Ashley, thank you for listening. Sorry that was long.
Thank you so much, Bridge. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Kei Kawashima Ginsburg.
Thank you, Elisa. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Thank you, Bridge. Thank you, Bobby and Ashley, for a wonderful introduction. So for me, the launch of HEDx represents a turning point in civic learning in higher education's democratic mission. It brings new clarity to the civic learning landscape on campuses today. For too long, in my view, that landscape has been fragmented, splintered, and opaque. Opportunities were siloed. Learners who were not already leaders or enrolled in certain kinds of majors or institutions usually struggled to see the full range of resources, networks, and pathways that were available and just right for them. So too many learners simply missed out. And too many institutions then fell short of educating for the constitutional democracy fully and become that place to grow, nurture, and advance democracy on their campuses, in their host communities, and with their students. And, when I think about what I've done at Sarkwat Tufts University, youth civic engagement and our people's capacity for civic life is vast, but it's not nearly deep enough, it's not broad enough, and it's not equal for sure. So the mission of higher education, I hope, must be more than producing graduates who are technically trained and ready, but they have the capable, informed, ethical citizenship development as part of their mission, especially in the evolving landscape of future of work, which has arrived a while ago. So this is where HEDx makes a unique contribution, I think. It expands civic learning opportunities beyond the usual reach to more students, whatever their major backgrounds or prior experience with civic life is, so that they can find that pathways that they feel like it's accessible to them. And for institutions, professionals who want to advance those civic learning opportunities to find the experts, the resources, and the peers who are in different places but similar situations to learn from each other and raise up each other. And for Civic Indicators Dashboard, which I want to spend for a minute, I'm especially excited with Dr. Morales to be able to create that common language and metrics and stories they can understand and use as a way to make sure they're accountable to their civic mission. They're able to compare how they're doing from their past to present and to other institutions. And for families, community, and students to be able to see what their potential institutional home of the future is doing to advance and contribute to democracy on their campuses and in their communities. You know, one of the other things that I want to talk about and want to pitch to you how great HEDx will be is its people. So many of us advisors are here today. Hello, everyone. That's one of the things that's really exciting is that many of us from very different vantage point, from student leaders to campus professionals, executives in foundations and programs and researchers have probably hundreds of years of expertise together. And those are the things that we built over time in our career. And now it's all yours. We're going to curate it. We're going to put it in one place that's really accessible. And the 20 emails that you probably had to write before to ask me or others on the expert network to figure out what you're doing, you're going to be able to just get that from HEDx. Of course, you're welcome to talk to other experts, but I think that's really exciting to be able to unlock that information that's been in our heads in transparent and accessible platform. So the students, staff, and institutions alike can really benefit from that resource. And I think of that as a HEDx is not just a platform or tool or data, but it's a table. Really abundant table where we can really share together, eat together, grow together in nurturing democracy. So I'm going to wrap up here because of the time too, but I really want to make sure you come in to help us shape the HEDx, especially civic indicators, which I'm part of, but other hubs too, to really improve how you would use it, how you can access it, and how you would take action from the information and data that we can present on HEDx. Thank you so much, and really look forward to talking with you and partnering with you all.
Thank you so much, Kay. I definitely think we will steal the table analogy. I think we all really loved it. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Rashawn Davis.
Thank you. Loved everything that I heard so far. So excited to be here with you all today. We are gathering here today at a moment really of great seriousness and importance, as both John and Kay have mentioned, and as many of you live each day. I've been fortunate enough in my career to work with a wide range of coalitions that have worked to achieve public impact. And in my opinion, our young democracy is facing its most significant challenge yet. And while politics is important and unavoidable at this moment is actually bigger than that. It's bigger than being right or bigger than being left. Frankly, we sit at the edge of years of atrophy. The Circle Institute, which I'm sure many of you know, has lots of compelling research around this. And what it all indicates to me is that we have failed to meaningfully invest in our democracy. We have failed to heed the words of philosopher John Dewey, who said that democracy has to be born anew every generation, and education its midwife. Civic engagement in this country, and I don't need to tell any of you this, has plummeted at the local level, at the state level, and the federal level. It's plummeted in all corners of the country. and across all age groups, perhaps none with greater consequence than the young people many of us serve each day. We seem to have forgotten that our democracy is at its very best when young people are engaged. In a country that was founded on the art of public discourse, of speech and debate, seems to have forgotten how to speak to one another and how to disagree. We've forgotten that voting is only the floor of civic engagement, not its ceiling. And I say we because higher education has both a responsibility and an obligation to this moment in our democracy. There may be no more formative period of time in a young person's life than the few years they spend on campus. So what happens in those years counts. What students learn, what they discuss, and what they choose to invest in have a profound impact on the future of our country. So we did not arrive at this moment, one of great polarization, of deep distrust and indifference, by accident. We got here by choices, both large and small, over a long period of time. Now, I'm not saying that higher education is the panacea to our democracy's struggles, but what I am saying is that the work ahead of us is about rebuilding and growing the tent of our democracy. And we cannot do that without higher education. We need more people participating, and that starts with more young people participating. And that requires that young people see themselves, see their concerns, see their voices, and their hopes in our democracy. We got to start meeting young people where they are, and we cannot make democracy more accessible to folks without working through higher education. And so that's why I'm here today. And it's why Campus Compact, AAC&U, More Perfect, and our many partners across the country have invested in HEDx. Because this moment calls for bold ideas and intentional steps. There's no Calvary coming to save us, folks. It's up to all of us in this virtual room. We're building HEDx not just to be another tool, but really to be an ecosystem for the best ideas and practices to get young people excited about democracy again. I wouldn't be here if there was any other reason. HEDx is about offering resources and community to institutional leaders who are serious about building sustainable pipelines of engagement. We need to get young people excited about voting again. We need to get them excited about attending local town council meetings. We need to get them excited about discussing and debating our nation's most pressing questions. And we need to get them excited about being citizens again. That is how we grow the tent of civic participation. Make no mistake, the work ahead of us is great. But as one of my high school teachers used to say, it is not great for those of us. It is not too great for those of us in this room. And so I'm proud to be here today, proud to have this town hall, proud to be in partnership with you all, and looking forward to getting to know all of you a bit better and making HEDx a reality. I think I'm passing it back to you, Bobby.
Thank you so much, Rashawn. Bobby, sorry, did you want to come in?
Nope, I was just going to say, Elisa's going to lead us into Q&A. That was amazing. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I always feel so much more inspired and alive sharing space with you all. So thank you so much. And now we're going to move into Q&A. I'm going to first pose a question that I saw in the chat a little bit earlier that was answered on the chat, but I really want to highlight. And if there's any other questions, please put them in the chat and I will navigate them. So I want to just share one question. I'll read it out loud and put it in the chat again from our colleague Patty Clayton. And they asked, I'm wondering if community members and students can be civic experts. Can they contribute to and draw from the set of resources? And Sandra, you did respond, so I was curious if you would be willing and open to come in and kind of provide a little bit more of clarity on that response.
Sure, and I will invite Alex Edgar, my fellow civic expert creator. Patty, so glad you raised that question, because one of the things that's really important to us is that expertise is understood to be much broader in terms of what it is, where it comes from, and who provides it, and that this is very much meant to be sort of peer-to-peer. So we'll be providing more framing on that, but the goal is really to sort of unleash, channel, and funnel the expertise that resides in the ecosystem, as Rashawn so beautifully said.
I'd like
Alex, anything you want to add?
Hi everyone. I think you touched it perfectly, but just kind of like draw some connections. I think Campus Compact and AAC&U and the whole team were really intentional about making sure that specific part is being co-led intergenerationally. And I think that is like such a perfect example of the goals of the project, is that it's not just a bunch of higher ed administrators talking about what would young people want to know, but is actually being co-designed by young people. Myself, I'm a recent graduate, our other advisors currently in school. So really thinking about like what our experiences are, and that's really shaping this program. So we're definitely planning on connecting with young adults, and also many of you on this call who are faculty and admin and have other roles there.
And in that vein, when you check out today, there will be a form through which you can sign up for a user feedback session that we are offering on Monday, September 22nd at 5 p.m. But there will also be ways to sort of fill that out online and to participate to ensure that this reflects your wisdom, needs, and desires.
Thank you so much. Bobby, did you want to come in?
I think the thing I just wanted to add, and then I think just getting to the nitty gritty of the question Cammie's posing, but the thing I wanted to add is that I see lots of colleagues here who work in other organizations beyond AAC&U and Campus Compact. And I just want to name that the intentionality of all of this, some institutions, some organizations are serving as direct advisors, is that HEDx ends up really complementing and intersecting with existing work. That there is particularly AAC&U and Compact, we really recognize we are part of a really vibrant ecosystem of entities and organizations that interface with institutions. The concept here is to really, I would say, like aggressively collaborate. And to build something that is truly accessible and transparent. And that will take, I just want to name, because there's been so many great resources that have been shared, that's what we need. And it's a little bit of kind of, I think, jumping to the question you asked, Amy, which is like the direct thing that we need right now, which we can, I think, answer in a sec. But I just wanted to name that clearly, that the concept here is not to build something that is owned and operated by a set of organizations and only for those members or this community. This is to be boldly open and boldly collaborative and integrative, which I'm not miss or naively understanding that that's hard. I've been in this network work for a long time. That's not easy to do, but that is part of what we're really challenging ourselves with. So I'll stop there. Go ahead, Elisa.
Thank you so much, Bobby. I just continuing that point and the question that Cammie from USC brought up. I think one thing that we're really looking for is for sharing. I think there's a lot of times we all share in these spaces, but we really want HEDx to be a place where though that sharing is recognized, so that you're not having to forward lots of emails back and forth, and for example, and so I did just put that link in the chat that has it might look a little familiar to a lot of you who have expressed interest in HEDx before, but this is more curated. So if you have specific things that you want shared, or if you are interested in participating in focus groups in the future, this is definitely where you want to indicate that information so that we can reach back out. And I think in addition, it's really just hearing from you all about what types of questions do you really want HEDx to help you answer. We know that there's a lot of big questions in the space. We're not saying HEDx will provide all of the answers, but what we want to do is really create those pathways to allow for people to find the answers and the resources to answer the question in a way that speaks to them in what they are furthering, kind of reflecting on what Rashawn said as well for finding pathways. So just want to come in and share that too.
And if I could just jump in and add something really quickly there, that really excites me about HEDx to some of the technical pieces is it's really hard to engineer humility into a project like this. Typically, when you have these huge organizations coming together, there's hundreds of years of expertise, and folks, there's a real tendency to say, this is the product, open and closed. And I think what's happening here, both the opportunity and the difficulty, is that we are engineering HEDx in a way where we're saying we don't have all of the answers, right? And so there's a lot of community input built in, but even more than that, there's just a lot of space built in to say, we want this to be something that's actually responsive to the needs of higher ed administrators. We want this to be something that's responsive to the needs of young people. And we can't do that if we have this call and then go back and build the thing and put it out and say, here it is. The only way we can do that is by building a system that continues to be open, that's flexible enough to be adapted, and to continue engaging folks. And so for me, that's the most exciting prospect here. It could also be sometimes the most frustrating and sometimes the most difficult because you want to have the answers. But I think what we are realizing is that the crisis we're facing, particularly around civic engagement, it actually isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. And so we need folks who are in the Southwest, we need folks who are in the Northeast, we need folks who are in the Southeast, the Pacific Northwest to be a part of this, to contribute resources, to contribute expertise. And that's how we make a system that is alive and responsive and is really making a dent in getting young people engaged.
Can I follow up on that quickly? I so appreciate Cammie's question here, and there's because we started in very much this vision space. This was blue sky for a while, and now we're not allowing ourselves to say blue sky. We are fully into a design phase that really is meant to deliver on minimum viable product, but deliver on some level of helpful and innovative functionality for each of the strands that we've talked about. And just building off of what Rashawn just said, I think part of how we have envisioned creating a design space that matches the values behind that blue sky thinking was to say, let's bring advisors in. And we were really clear, and you'll hear it from, as you're hearing from these advisors and some online here, that we invited people in as in the advising space, not just to like give us your big thoughts, but these are people meant to take action. So they are working toward those practical products, deliverables out of the box as soon as we get to July or so. So that's a huge piece of what we're trying to do here. And I will add this other point: in bringing those advisors in and then building out this design phase, know that behind each of those advisors is an entire network, frankly, that Bobby and I don't have access to. I'm meeting so many people on this project. Bobby's meeting so many people on this project. So is Lisa, so is the whole team. Because we know that these feel like concentric circles of networks and inclusion, that by bringing people in, we know we're bringing others along with them who are going to give us great input into this. So that's also matters.
I wanted to jump in. I think this actually points to, I want to connect the dots between your question around like what's a specific thing with what Cinda's asking here, which is like this very like, look, this is something, Cinda, you're kind of mentioning, you're like wrestling with, like, how would the platform potentially help our students build more awareness of the habits and skills for democracy they're learning and practicing through community engagement work. So this is kind of off the cuff, but I think this connects to like, how would HEDx actually address that? That gets to this, like, what are the, like, give me the very specific thing it will do. So I can think of two ways that potentially the platform, when it's live, would help address a question like this that you may be sitting with Cinda. So one is in the credential clearinghouse. Now, just naming, you're here, we're having this town hall in a bit of a vulnerable beginning stage, and that's what you're kind of experiencing here. But some of what we have talked about is how could the credential clearinghouse actually help elevate all of both the campus-based credentials that campuses are doing and more open source accessible ones, Cinda, that might be directly pointed at skill development, so that in one place as a campus leader, you would be able to see what are campuses across the country doing in terms of maybe a credential or a distinction program or a minor? How's it structured? What are the learning outcomes? What are the requirements attached for it? But then also we're working with folks like, and I can't think of our newest friend that we just met, Chris. What is the name of that program, Ashley?
Chris Newland at Team Democracy.
Team Democracy, that's working with More Perfect again, that has a set of more open access credential programs focused on building out democracy skills. So I think, Cinda, like on the Civic Credential Clearinghouse, think of a place to go to be able to say, like, I just want to explore how this kind of skill gap that I am seeing could be addressed, both like what I might be able to say, oh, these are models of what I could build at Carleton, or these are places that I actually can directly access with my students. So like, I think that's an example of what we envision around Credential Clearinghouse. Then when I go to scaling innovative practice, I think the hope is very much so, what could you do to search for this? Like, because I couldn't agree more as someone who's come through the community engagement pathway and then spending my time at Compact these past couple of years where the tent is much bigger. So how could the scaling innovative practice help you like look through a really dynamic resource library that helps kind of alleviate some really cool examples? Like one that I think is so a good example that you could look at now. College Park has this incredible body of work and resources around how campuses can get involved in local transition planning. What does it look like for students to be directly involved, whether that transition planning is for a county executive or a governor? And that to me is the great marrying of what you're saying, of community engagement and democracy in a real way. That example will live on HEDx, but also we want scaling innovative practice to be a place where you could pose that question. And perhaps we're thinking about these innovation sprints functionality where people would be able to say, I want to wrestle with that too, Cinda. And funders ideally would be able to be like, this actually fits into one of our strands of interest. How can we fund a set of like design labs based on address? Like that's the dream. So I just want to, if that helps people see like the kind of more crystallized, like how do you deal with that kind of question, how HEDx is going to help you. So hopefully, Cinda, that gets at it. But that, again, we're building this. This is live happening, but those are some of the exciting visions that we're hoping come to life.
Thank you so much, Bobby. I'm going to, I think I've been tracking in the chat. I think we're all contributing a lot. So thank you so much. I am making note of links that are being shared. So please do know it's not going into an abyss. And in addition to that, we have a recording of this and then the form as well. So please do complete that form. We will include it in the email that goes out after this recording or after this webinar is completed as well. And then of course, if there's any specific questions, my email is also available. So put that in the chat in 1 second once I finish speaking. So I just want to thank you all so much and just give a brief update on kind of like what to expect next from us. And so like a few of us had already mentioned, we are going to be hosting some open focus groups. And if you are interested in participating in those, please do indicate that so that we can, we already kind of have like the list ready so that we can send out those invitations once things are scheduled. And we will continue to keep folks updated via email as well. And please keep an eye out for our work at the other events that were just mentioned, the AAC&U annual meeting in January and Compact 26 in March. And yeah, you will continue to hear from us. We truly cannot build this unless everyone is joining the table. We're going to have to make a really big table, but that is the point. And we want your feedback on how we build that. So please continue to express interest and share. We are so grateful for your time this afternoon, especially to our speakers, and sharing your vision and your hopes. And yeah, thank you again, and just really excited to continue to build this platform alongside you all. So thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.